And speaking of future, somehow Basketball na Pilipinas or SBP earlier announced that no pro players will be included in the pool, which is somehow a great opportunity for you to train with the young guys. Which is and so at the same time, it is also understandable because the schedule coincides with the PBA games. And was it something that you expected building in an all cadet team once again?
I don't think it's ever preferential to do that. But we do have to realize and acknowledge and pay homage to the fact that we live in a basketball landscape that has a lot of conflicting responsibilities for players. And so nobody, I don't believe, wants to put themselves in a position where they're demanding anything. And that's why I think when you see the SBP and the PBA working closely together to try and find best solutions, whatever part of the calendar that we're in, I think you have a very positive scenario, but one that always ends up frustrating some people because we want more PBA players, or we might want more young players, or the PBA wants more young players in their draft. But we're all finding ways to compromise and at the same time try and put a very, very strong team out on the floor every time Gilas takes the floor. Because the one thing we all acknowledge, whether it's the PBA or the SBP or the players, we all acknowledge the fact that our fans want us to win, that the country wants us to win. And we want to win as well. We might not always put the optimal lineup on the floor to win, but we want our fans to understand that the lineup that we put out there is a lineup that we hope in the future, in the biggest of events, so the World Cup when we host in 2023, the Olympic qualifying, whether it's this year or in the future to get into the Olympics, that we are building a roster that at some point in the most critical competitions is going to be the strongest that we can put on the floor. And so in the interim, we sometimes have to make compromises and do the best that we can with what we're working with.
And
So
coach,
it's
I
all
think
about the bigger
building.
picture.
Sorry. But I think coach
Sorry,
building an
sorry.
all cadet team is really for a long term plan for the Gilas. Because if we feel that a lot of PBA players that we know are aging already, they're not on their young age, it's not gonna be good for the Gilas pool. It's not gonna be good for our team. So all cadet team is, I think, the best for our Gilas team today. Because it's a long-term plan. It's for the future. It's not just for today's qualifiers, that just for today's
Yes.
competition.
I think, Sarah, when you look around the world, different countries will use different types of programs to put their optimal national teams on the floor. And most countries out there are on a treadmill of replenishing talent as it moves out the back door through retirement, or players become bested by younger players who are better than them. We have a different model here. Our model is at times determined by availability. But again, we could look at that as a negative if we wanted to, and unfortunately many people do. What we're trying to do is we're trying to use that as a positive by introducing more young players and broadening the base of players that we have to choose from whenever any future competitions come up. And yes, you're right, that is a long-term plan, and we don't see the fruits of that plan right now. So it might mean that we put a young team out there that is, outmatched at this time. But those players gain invaluable experience so that down the road when we play in, the premier competitions, hopefully they won't be outmatched.
Hopefully, I think, because at this point in time, they're really training hard, not just for today, but for the future. But do you think, coach, having no pro players is an advantage for our Gilas team?
I don't think when you talk about winning games, no, it's not an advantage. It's a massive disadvantage, right? But when you're talking about other goals of the program, which is preparing itself for 2023, when we're going to have the world come to us and we want to put on a great show, then it is an advantage. But you're going to have fans out there that are looking at this and they're going to say, well, we don't want to lose to Korea, or we don't want to get beat badly by Serbia or Dominican Republic in
Dominican
the
Republic.
OTP. No, we don't either. And that's why we're going to train these players so hard to go out and compete and try to win. But we also have to be realistic, and we have to acknowledge the fact that we're not putting our best talent on the floor. But what that forces us to do is to make our talent more intelligent in order to compete. So again, it's, you know, we have to be able to find the silver lining in every issue that we confront. And instead of complaining and you know, moaning about what we don't have, we have to make the best with what we do have. But we can't fail to acknowledge that it does present challenges that having the best talent available wouldn't present to us.